right, welcome to the podcast Through Safety. Today we have on the podcast Max Reid, and just to introduce Max to everyone, if you haven't met Max before, Max is one of our employees at Through Safety by AllaTrust, and just to give you a quick bio of him, he is our person that knows all things finance. He knows how to schedule everything. You've probably talked to him through email if you've worked with us before. He's been with us for a couple years at Through Safety, and he's just a pleasure to be around, and he knows a lot of stuff about a lot of things. But I don't want to take all your words from you, Max, so please introduce yourself to us and what your role is at Through Safety.
Well, thank you, Jordan. I'm excited to be here. So yeah, as you just said, I work more on the office side of things. So my official title is the operations manager, but that means that I'm included in things financial, office, invoicing, anything that falls under that purview. So that's kind of what I do.
So Max, you work in finance. Did you study finance? What kind of drew you to finance? What's your story you tell people about being in finance?
So the finance was not something I anticipated ending up in. I actually went to school in microbiology of all things. But wound up doing a few different things, but found I was, had a good head for finance and organization and operations. So my, abilities kind of led me in that direction. And that's where I've wound up through, the majority of my career.
So microbiology, that's super specific. What drew you to microbiology initially? Because that's something I haven't even heard of. I haven't even heard of studying it besides scientists and things like that. So,
well, and that is kind of the route that most of them go. When I first started, I thought I might end up in academia doing the kind of science research stuff. I was drawn to it. I found I was good at it in high school. I took AP biology and really enjoyed it. And then I was a Sterling Scholar candidate for the state of Utah here in science. So I kind of found I had a knack for it a little bit and decided to pursue it in college. When I got in college, however, I kind of found that it gets super specific and a little tedious to kind of end up doing the academia route. It turned out not to be kind of my cup of tea. Exactly. But I didn't know that until I kind of got pretty far into it and then wound up going another direction.
So you finished the whole degree. You went from beginning, middle, end. You studied all of the graduate. It's a bachelor's degree in microbiology?
Just a bachelor's degree. Yeah, I thought about going on initially, but I had gotten kind of burned out and decided just to stop at the bachelor's degree and then just start working.
So when you got to the end of the degree, you discovered early on that there was some deviation from your passion for it, and what initially fired that passion for microbiology, apart from general understanding? Was there some insight you were gaining when you were studying it in high school and then the first couple of years of college?
I really liked how it kind of opened things up. You know, you start learning about things you can't really see. Initially, it just seems like you're learning kind of concepts and things that are tough to visualize, but the longer you stay with it and you do kind of, the pieces start to fall together a lot more. And I really enjoyed when things would make sense on a different level that way. You know, you learn something early on and you just kind of rote memorization, plow through it, but then as you kind of dig further into it, it does kind of end up falling into place with larger pictures. So I did really enjoy how science kind of works that way, how it does kind of build and give you a better understanding of the world.
So you found that you were, apart from the arithmetic of it or the biology of it, you found that there was pattern recognition that then drew you into understanding bigger problems, like, oh, I can use this and this together and create something new potentially. That's kind of the
exactly.
Yeah.
And I also really liked that there's a ton of creativity in science, at least as far as how people have kind of gone about figuring things out, that I always found incredibly fascinating, like how people devised ways to kind of figure some of this stuff out. I always found that super interesting.
Any examples of a famous figuring out situation that you found fascinating?
Oh, it's off the top of my head. It'd probably be difficult to come up with something at the moment.
I can think of like the genetic study with the peas. Like, was it Mendel or
Yeah, Gregor
it was
Mendel.
like, yeah, he sat there with a bunch of pea plants, and that's one small example I can think of where creative thinking created an entire industry, of genetic
Yeah, yeah,
modification. Yeah,
yeah,
it
just a
changed the world,
monk.
honestly. Yeah. So that's interesting. So there's a kind of a moment where you had to pivot, and you said, here's my passion. I don't know if I'm have enough creativity in this, and then you turn to finance, which is known for being creative.
Exactly. So yeah, so I had actually got it started with a smaller company that was I was doing kind of logistics managing as well as
Hmm.
invoicing and being involved. Whereas a small company, I was kind of involved in a bunch of stuff, which kind of led me into like the more financial side of things.
And as your career progressed, you ended up kind of being around the safety space. And explain to us how you became more aware of it, I guess, as your career continued to progress. I know you spent some years in corporate roles with finance, but it definitely had an impact on how people operated.
Yes, I mean, so the smaller company I was at was a foundry that yeah, I was more on the import export side. The foundry had a division of the company that was bringing stuff that they had produced in India over to the U.S. But we had like a warehouse, and there were mechanics out there, and so we did do like the required safety training. So I was exposed to it that way, even though my role was not. Um, Directly involved in manufacturing or things like that, but I still had to be involved with the safety side of things. So I that was my first kind of initial exposure to a lot of safety training and the compliance side of everything.
Right. And it's almost like there's like a parallel universe happening with compliance in science and compliance in, social science, being safety, that sort of thing. And did you
Yeah.
start to kind of see that those parallels kind of lining up at any point when you were initially taking those trainings or being more involved in that world of things? Because you experienced it to a high degree in college, but now you're experiencing it out in the real world in a different way.
Yeah, I don't know if I put a ton of thought into it at that time. It was definitely something I knew was important. Like, safety, everyone always says it's, one of their big priorities. It doesn't always work that way in every company,
Hmm.
but, it was something I recognized as being very important, but I didn't always see exactly how my role fit within that really well.
Right, and it's hard for anybody to see how they fit in something with limited exposure. I can imagine. But how long were you there at the foundry for? And then you did make a jump to join through safety. What was that moment that inspired you to say, "Hey, this is something that I identify with"? Because you're a very big part of the success and the growth of through safety and Alitrust.
So I was with the foundry for 10 years. I had decided to leave there. I was kind of looking for new opportunities, and this opportunity with Alitrust came up. So initially, I hadn't been exposed to Alitrust programs, but the safety space was something that I felt was an important industry, something I felt I'd feel good working in, trying to keep people safe.
Hmm.
Um, so it wasn't until a little later when I actually got to experience Alitrust training.
Hmm.
I got to sit in on some actual training classes for frontline leaders in our Leadership Through Safety program that I really started to get an understanding of how safety can be important and impactful and not just like a corporate oversight kind of vision of it, but in more of a day to day how it affects people's lives, viewing of how safety works. So it was when I first saw the training that I really started to connect with the product and what we do here.
So when you first saw the training, you had this kind of moment where you were realizing, or not even consciously realizing it, but seeing a connection being made with people and with concepts, right?
Right.
And to me, you're a person based on your experience and what you've done. You like to connect the dots, right? You're a connect the dots type, getting things through from beginning to middle to end. I mean, chemistry, that's basically what that is, right? But with finance, it's similar. You're connecting dots. You know, where did this come from? Where did that come from? But with safety, there's kind of an ambiguity at times. Like, you know, where does the discussion start? When does it end? And you're saying that at that moment you had a connection being made.
I think the connection was that things were getting tied to bigger concepts, and
Mm,
so it wasn't just safety. You know, it's it in a compliance setting. It was safety becoming more of a value and realizing the impact that somebody's well-being would have, not just on themselves, but all those around them. And I did connect with that, and I found that a really unique way to kind of look at safety in a workplace setting.
that's great. So if you fast forward to today, you've learned a lot since then, being more closely tied to the product. There's a part of the discussions that are had, you know, whenever it's being delivered, of the front of the brain and the back of the brain, talking about how we talk to somebody, and working in a foundry or working in different environments. Sometimes you notice people talk to a reactive part of the brain, the back of the brain, that's very just snap judgment. Everything's quick and automatic. Front of the brain, what reached your front of the brain, that frontal part where you think? Because you know, you tend to think through things. Was there a moment in the training that stands out to you that you think people should know? Hey, this actual concept really matters to me. Is there anything that you feel, or is there anything in general that you think stands out?
I think one of the things that works really well with the training that kind of really stood out to me was the time aspect of it, slowing
Mm,
things down and talking to people in a way that would allow space for them to actually change their thinking or their initial response. Kind of giving that space, I thought was a really simple but effective way to kind of go about um, having a different kind of conversation with safety. Because most safeties in industries where of course time's very important. No
mm.
one wants to spend
Don't want to
time
waste time,
tirelessly.
right?
Yeah, they don't want to waste
Yeah.
time. So
Mhm.
I found it really insightful. Just sometimes you just need extra time to really connect with someone and what they're what's going through their head to kind of change the behavior. So behavior changes um, only, I think, when you understand the other person and they can understand where you're coming from.
I love that. So creating a general understanding requires time to get there. It's not always automatic. Sometimes it takes a minute to align what's being done, what's being said. But that alignment is essential in your to paraphrase what you're saying. It creates an opportunity
Yeah, exactly.
to learn together. That's great. So obviously you're talented and you're great at finance, great at chemistry. You know, I don't know if you still practice chemistry, but I do know I do have a secret, you know, a whisper in my ear that you have a secret talent that you don't share with a lot of people. But it's an incredible skill. But it is kind of like chemistry. Do you care to speak about one of your hobbies that I personally am a huge fan of?
Yeah, so I guess so. I have gotten into baking and pastry. I've always enjoyed cooking, but initially, baking wasn't my favorite thing. But I had started
Mm-hmm.
making bread, and it was actually pre-pandemic. So I started making bread though, and found I really liked it, and got into baking and pastry. And there is a bit of it, like you say, it is almost like chemistry sometimes, and baking it.
And what I love about it is you're taking you're taking your skills of understanding and operations and order, and then testing and creativity, making something, right? But you're also involving the human experience. You're taking somebody and saying, hey, does this taste good? And you mentioned you bake things you don't even like to eat. That seems crazy to me. But you why would you make something you don't want to eat?
I don't know. Food is definitely something I think that works best when it's shared with other people. Everyone enjoys, food, but I think people enjoy it more when it's shared. So just that sharing part of it, I've always enjoyed. So I don't necessarily have to love what I'm making to enjoy, baking or making something for someone else.
Yeah. But sharing is a big part of why you would do it to begin with, is to experience things with other people and not put
Yeah,
words in your
yeah.
mouth, but yeah. Yeah. So I would argue that might be why you're so drawn to improving and continually improving the products and services at AllaTrust and through safety is that shared experience that we experience in the room with people or virtually is a paramount part of what you care most about. If that's what you spend your free time doing, it's safe to assume that might be why you do it professionally.
Yeah, I guess I haven't thought of it quite like that, but that is true. Yeah, that is. I do see value in sharing things that are important, and so that definitely lines up with the work we do at AllaTrust.
Well, we're about on time here, Max. So thanks for jumping on today. I know you're busy and I don't want to waste your time. I'm obviously trying to be cognizant of our time spent, but looking forward to seeing what else comes out and the next discussion we have. So thanks again, Max, and I'll let you get back to your day.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jordan.